This Mikael live, and hope everybody's feeling good. Um, don't know if you got this information, but we at 3807 East 8 Mile Road, about 3 blocks west of Ryan, between Ryan and DeQuinta, and we there to service you Monday through Saturday from 10 to 7. And you can always give us a call directly at the store at 586-757-DIET. Again, that's 586-757-3438. Our old number still works, 313-366-DIET. And then you can always reach me on the cell phone, 313-600-8532. Um, just wanted to send a shout out to my nephew. He waited till he got 50 years old, decided to get married this weekend in Atlanta to Paula, who I met, and they just seem to have a good synergy, good energy between them. A lot of love, a lot of kissing, and a lot of hugging. That's good when you're romancing, and it's also good when you keep romancing throughout your whole marriage. Okay. Um, and his name is Keith, and her name is Paula. So I just wanted to send a shout out, wish the best for them. The other family member I want to send a shout out to is my two grandsons, Xavier and Miles and Xavier. They got both of them got baseball games this Saturday in Atlanta, and I'd be fortunate to be there to see them hit their home runs. And they're like 6 and 9 years old, so that's gonna be a special treat too. So I just send a shout out to them to have a great game. And but back to the business in Detroit. Um, I ran across this article, and it's just I've been a pet peeve of mine, but I never seen proof of it. And that was from Dr. McCullough, who say I'm not a doctor, a lawyer, nutritionist, or dietitianist. I read a lot, share a lot, hug a lot, love a lot, and he is a doctor. And let's get to it. And this article is labeled "Higher Cholesterol is Associated with Longer Life." And one reason it's been a pet peeve of mine is because people come in with high cholesterol and they get the medication, and medication takes the cholesterol out of your body, but it doesn't discriminate. 20% of your brain is lecithin. He talks about 25% of your brain is lecithin. So when you're taking these cholesterol pills, it takes the lecithin out of your brain and contributing to Alzheimer's, dementia, uh, you know, and other conditions. God made it possible for your body to make cholesterol. And they got the good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. And way I've been fighting it is with lecithin, okay? Because lecithin is an emulsifier. You know how water and oil doesn't mix. When you put lecithin in there, it helps emulsify it, like blend it together. And you'll see a lot of cosmetic companies, they use lecithin in their formulas because they're using oils and water-based substance, and they need lecithin for them to stick together. And taking lecithin on a daily basis is something we talked to the brothers about for years, because they come into Healthwise and get the confidence pills, which is the male enhancement pills, and they swear by it. Matter of fact, it's one of our number one products. But if they got time, we'll tell them that make sure you drink enough water, because what makes a man firm is blood, and the blood is 95% water. The other key point, if they got time, is lecithin, because 90% of a man's ejaculation is lecithin. And like we said, 25% of the brain is lecithin. So we jokingly say men lose their head over women because they sputing out all this lecithin. And so if they got time, we tell them to take it. And some brothers do, maybe 1 out of 10. It comes in 3 forms. This, to me, is the most convenient, the pill form, but we also carry it in the powder form and also carry it in a liquid form. And liquid mainly used for cooking, baking in the kitchen. But some people have taken it. I have taken it, as I know how it tastes. Kind of remind me of castor oil, but it's real good for you. So I just dealt with it. But the pill form, I like. My godson turned me on to, because for years, the only place we knew to get lecithin was from soy. And I wasn't too crazy about that because soy has the estrogen in it. And, it's the last thing men need to take on a regular basis is a source of estrogen. Okay. I'm like, okay. Excuse me. And so my godson told me about a sunflower source of lecithin. I was like geeked. I said, okay, cool. I can feel real confident about the brothers, taking that. And I take it, and I just love it. Been taking it for years. Just when we get here, it say heart and brain health, or of course it's non-GMO sunflower seeds, and uh, it's like each peel, one peel, it's like 1,200 milligrams of lecithin. So it's excellent. And so in the bottle, you get like 90 capsules in there. Um, so it's like a 3-month supply. Um, and for the sisters, they got like high blood pressure. Um, we always encourage them to, consider the reports that they have about lecithin. Okay, which I'm gonna share with you. This report that they got from Macola. And so this article just came out September the 2nd, so it's like fresh. And it just backs up the innate feeling and thoughts and meditation and lessons from God and my higher self that told me about cholesterol some 30 years ago. Because maybe it's Dick Gregory. Somewhere, one of my mentors, it was telling us about this. Another source of lecithin is also eggs. If you get that egg with that with that orange tint to it, okay, that egg was fertilized by a rooster. It may even have a little red vein in it or something. Okay, well, that one is loaded with lecithin. And I remember in the 70s when the black exploitation movies come out, some of the guys were taking 3 or 4 eggs and put it in the blender, and to drink it, and they said it raises their nature up. Okay, one of those things was called lecithin. All right, but since then, now they got eggs that's got the bright yellow, tint to it, and eggs, it just ain't not the same, because the egg, you go from an egg to a chicken on the farm, that's farm raised, it takes 14 weeks. With these growth hormones they shooting into the chickens, the eggs, whatever they take to have that chicken grow from an egg to a full chicken in 4 weeks. So it's not nice to try to fool Mother Nature, and so you lose out a lot of the nourishments, and you can tell because the egg is that bright yellow, like the sun, okay? And it should have the orange tint to it, like the ones we have at Healthwise. So that's two sources. And I remember Dr. Waller was telling me about this guy that was like 79, 80 years old, and he was having a hard time with his nature. And he recommended he take 24 eggs a day. Of course, the guy didn't do it because he thought it was outrageous, but Dr. Waller had other folks who did do it, and they were, I could say, remarkable at the results that they got. And because contrary to popular beliefs about this cholesterol, I always challenged it because your body makes cholesterol. So to me, there's guys making cholesterol, and how they gonna tell you that it's bad for you is like, to me, it's setting you up for disaster, so they can make some more money on you. So anyway, so I'm not surprised because the Eskimos, they eat like fish, liver, and this tons of oils and fats, and they don't have high blood pressure. And then in the Orient, they eat a lot of fats. They don't have high blood pressure. Matter of fact, this, I think it's part of this article talking about how they have a longer lifespan than those who take those drugs to get the cholesterol down out of your body. So here we go. Cholesterol, the soft, waxy substance found in every cell of your body, is used to produce several of your body's vital functions, including hormones and vitamin D. High cholesterol is now recognized for its link to longer life. Faulty science says your total cholesterol is not a gauge of your heart disease risk, because when your levels are measured, elevated levels called triglycerides are also taken into account. Found in every cell of your body, cholesterol is used to produce several of your body's vital functions, including those that involve hormones and vitamin D, D3. Studies show a coronary or inverse link between all-cause mortality and total cholesterol levels. In other words, mortality is higher when your cholesterol is lower, without exceptions. Consider the false information on cholesterol, continued prescriptions for statins, and the potential devastating side effects they cause. It's clear my researchers are calling for a paradigm shift in the way cholesterol is treated. So that's some of the highlights of this article. Hopefully we'll get through them all. For those who aren't sure, the conventional health community is wholly in support of individuals' health when it comes to cholesterol levels, which in some cases still adhere to the storyline that too much cholesterol increases the risk of heart attacks. You're right to be concerned. Taking a global view of what cholesterol is and how it affects your body is the smarter way to approach it than the simple cholesterol kills narratives that's been the drumbeat for so many years. If I remember, I think this started in the 50s. He may get into that. Cholesterol, the soft, waxy substance found in every cell in your body, is used to produce several of your body's vital functions, including those that involve hormones and vitamin D3. About 75% of it is made by your liver, and the remaining is derived from the food you eat. 25% is in your brain. See, God didn't make no mistakes. There are two types of high density. There are two types of cholesterol. High density is first. It is also known as HDL, or the good kind that keeps cholesterol away from your arteries and removes it from your arteries. The second type is low density lipoprotein, or LDL, is the bad kind that can build up in your arteries, form plaque that narrows your arteries and form a clot. This can then make its way to your heart or brain and cause either a heart attack or a stroke. See, that's one of the reasons I always encourage people to drink water, 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 especially our water, which I can't seem to get enough of this morning. The American Heart Association now recommends that you balance your levels at about 150 milligrams per decimeter, as mg over dl. According to old, unfound science, your total cholesterol, the sum of all the cholesterol in your body, is not a gauge of your heart disease risk. When your levels are measured, elevated levels of triglycerides are also taken into account. According to um, Norstengard from the University of Copenhagen and the Copenhagen University Hospital, quote, so far, both cardiologists, physicians, have focused mostly on reducing LDL, the bad cholesterol, but in the future, the focus will also be on reducing triglycerides and rampant cholesterol. Does it matter what kills you? That's the question that is highlighted. In a commentary posted on missionorg.com, no, mission.org, excuse me, a rhetorical question is presented. With all the ways you can die, does it matter what kills you? On one hand, if you're dead, you're dead, no matter from what. So it seems silly to focus on changing something that lowers the risk of death from one cause only to rise that risk from another. I mean, it's like they hitting home. Talking about cholesterol cause high blood pressure, but then you got people that's on the planet worldwide, globally, it's causing them to live longer. In obscure observations, when you read studies showing conclusively that cholesterol have very little to do with heart diseases. Even more importantly, cholesterol is critical for your health. If it's too low, then eventually your hormones, disease risk, cell signaling pathways, and yes, your heart will suffer. In fact, new research shows that too low LDL levels could put you at a higher risk for a stroke. Too lower risk of the LDL, the bad cholesterol. So how you gonna say it's bad, but we just gonna call it LDL? Most people know it as bad cholesterol, good cholesterol, LDL. But if it's too low, it could cause a stroke. So how can that be bad? Anyway, the Dietary Guidelines Advisory Committee, DGAC, which reviews the dietary guidelines for Americans every 5 years, investigated the issue. The 2015-2020 guidelines noted, quote, while adequate evidence is not available for a quantitative limit for dietary cholesterol in the 2015-2020 dietary guidelines, cholesterol is still important to consider when building a healthy eating lifestyle. In fact, the dietary guidelines states that people should eat as little dietary cholesterol as possible. See, that to me is the old way of thinking. And even for the next, from the years from 2015-20, they still promoting this old way. Yes, yet, even though that's what is said on the government Choose My Plate public website, it's obvious the committee at some point flipped its narrative entirely by acknowledging at a dietary guidelines advisory committee meeting that, quote, cholesterol is not considered a nutrient of concern for overconsumption. I mean, they tell you be careful on one hand, and they had to tell you don't have to worry about it on the other. It's no wonder people are confused about cholesterol fits in your diet when they send one message to the public and completely different one to their own group at advisory committee meeting. Interesting. So like you gonna tell the public one thing, but your boys you gonna tell something else. Come on now. Um, Interesting. That statement was made nearly 5 years ago, but information on the importance of cholesterol is nearly 2 decades old. 20 years, over 20 years old. As the Honolulu Heart Program study published in the Lockheed in 2001 states, quote, our data accord with previous findings of increased mortality in elderly people with low serum cholesterol and showed that long-term persistence of low cholesterol concentration actually increased risk of death. Again, if the cholesterol level is too low, it could increase your risk of death. That's from the study in Honolulu. The narrative challenges those who insist that eating food that contains fats of any kind, saturated and trans fats alike, are harmful. Many who make this claim also maintain that saturated fats is a bad fat because it raises your LDL levels more than anything else in your diet. However, as explained in the Mission.org article, quote, while total cholesterol is a poor, if not utterly worthless, risk marker for heart disease, doctors have focused on it to the exclusion of how it might affect other causes of death. It does you little good to save yourself from heart disease if it's meant that your increased risk of death from cancer, all-cause mortality, death from anything, is the most appropriate measure to use when looking at risk factors. It's, I keep interpreting these things because it to me is the way they talk is some people get it, but to me the way I understood that is that for years they've been telling people to watch their cholesterol, and they zero in on watching the cholesterol. But if it's important for your hormones, important for vitamin D. See, vitamin D is known to help fight off cancer. And you focus on just that one aspect of for a heart attack, and then people end up dying of cancer or some other condition, or even the low cholesterol, the LDL, because you saying earlier that the LDL, if it's too low, could kill you too. So the more appropriate focus will be to focus on your total health, not just that one factor. Here we go. The best measure for risk factors. Death from anything may be a clear term for one to so often used in clinical settings. All cause mortality. Either way, as quoted by the following study, that's what the lesser research says is the best measure for the factors that increase the risk of what actually and most likely will take someone's life. Overall, not just one factor. When it comes to your risk of death from heart disease, there's much more evidence that information is at the bottom of heart disease rather than high cholesterol, just as it is for a number of other serious diseases. If you want to find out what might help you live longer, that's the premises of a lengthy Japanese study published in the Annals of Nutrition and Metabolism. As for further studies, it notes that regardless of someone's age, people with high cholesterol live longer. Quote, overall, as the inverse trend is found between all-cause mortality and total or low LDL cholesterol levels, mortality is higher in the lowest cholesterol group without exception. If limited to elderly people, this trend is universal. As discussed in Section 2, elderly people with the highest cholesterol levels have the highest survival rate irrespective of where they live in the world. So we're not going to be just fooled by the propaganda they project here in the United States. Now we got the internet and we can check each other's country out and find out what's going on over there. Based on data from Japan, we propose a new direction in the use of cholesterol medication for global health promotions, namely recognizing that cholesterol is a negative risk factor for all-cause mortality and re-examine our use of cholesterol medications accordingly. After showing that people of all ages with high cholesterol levels live longer in Japan, in support of these conclusions, similar conclusions were made by a study based in Netherlands and published in the BMJ in 2016, 2 or 3 years ago. The study adjusted for several heart risk factors like smoking, high blood pressure, and a history of diabetes. Participants were placed in groups depending on whether their cholesterol levels were low, medium, or high. And those with the highest cholesterol levels were found to have the lowest death rates. The title of the BMJ reviews revealed the outcome. There was a, quote, lack of an association or an inverse association between LDL cholesterol and mortality in the elders. In short, older people with high LDL, that's the so-called bad cholesterol, generally live just as long and may even outlive people with low LDL or the bad cholesterol, which begs the question of how the current cholesterol theory was arrived at in the first place. At the very least, studies, authors imply the cholesterol question should at least be reevaluated. It concludes, our review provides the basis for more research about the cause of cardiovascular diseases and also for a re-evaluation of the guideline for cardiovascular prevention, in particular because the benefits from statin treatments have been exaggerated. Yeah, and people get this statin drug and it takes cholesterol out your body, and then they ain't telling you the truth. Exaggerated. I mean, that's just a cute way of saying they lying. One of the first studies published with information suggesting that high cholesterol is not as heart damaging as once thought was the Honolulu Heart Program, offering further evidence that higher cholesterol levels may be heart protective. The authors conclude by questioning whether there is scientific justification for attempt to lower cholesterol to concentration below 4-65 mmol over L in elderly people, adding that Pertin, Pertins dictates a more conservative approach in this age group. Can high cholesterol level be really, but be can cholesterol levels really be heart protective? Is the question to start off this next section with. Perhaps the question that would get to the point quicker is to ask why the Japanese study infers the, that people with low versus high cholesterol level die sooner. The mission offers reference studies that show a few factors that should be weighed in. One, cholesterol may protect against infections and heart disease, as, quote, the many observations that conflict with LDL receptors hypothesis may be explained by the idea that high serum cholesterol and or high LDL is protective against infections and heart disease. Two, cholesterol may protect against cancer. And isn't that interesting? Although in preventive cases where low cholesterol was linked to cancer, exclusions were made to tip the scale, such as exclusion possible prior drug treatment, namely clobefibrate, a popular cholesterol-lowering drug before statins, by subjects, leaving the question open as to whether it was the low cholesterol that causes the cancer or the drug treatment that contributed to it. Okay, I got that one. They come up with a plan to push their drugs, and the test results, they tipped it to favor their drugs being sold even more so. Low cholesterol, 80 milligrams over DL, and lower, and violence in psychiatric patients have been linked. Wow, that caught me. Lower cholesterol and violence in psychiatric patients have been linked. So you lower the cholesterol that cause people to be violent or less patient with each other and they end up killing off each other. When patients in a long-term psychiatric hospital with a history of seclusions or restraints were compared with other patients, there was a, quote, highly significant and strong association between low cholesterol levels and violent behavior. The author did cautions, however, that cholesterol levels should not be used to predict violence. It's interesting how folks will say one thing and then they kind of got scared. So, ooh, what did I say? Let me smooth that over a little bit. There's also an association between low cholesterol and suicide dating back more than a decade. There's also association between low cholesterol and suicide dating back more than a decade. As researchers found that people in the lowest quartile of cholesterol concentration had more than 6 times the suicide rate than those in the highest quartile. Wow. This is going way beyond. I'm just thankful to God that He gave me that wisdom and the insight to share with people about the benefits of lecithin. So people can eat that the cholesterol, get their foods, but you got the oil, but you need the lecithin to help break it up. Anyway, thank you, God. It should be noted that at least one study in Japan determined that high cholesterol and suicide were connected. But in fact, numerous recent studies have corroborated the earlier ones connecting low cholesterol to suicide with various findings. For one example, one found that low triglycerides reduces body mass index and waist circumference significantly, but not total cholesterol, were connected to a higher risk of suicide. While a 2019 study found that lower cholesterol is associated with aggressiveness in suicide attempts. Low cholesterol is associated with aggression and suicide attempts. This is in Japan, see. I love this, that we can get the information from our yellow brothers. So what about statins? It's them drugs, here they come. Significantly, the authors of the Annuals of Nutrition and Metabolism study didn't hold back when drawing conclusions regarding why cholesterol continuum has gone on so long when the evidence is so clear. For the side defending this so-called cholesterol theory, the amount of money at stake is too much to lose the fight. Not the amount of health or the amount of lives, but the amount of money is too high to risk telling the people the truth about cholesterol. The annual nutrition metabolism study and introduction mentioned a medical practitioner who advocates statins to his patients to drive down cholesterol until he read the Scandinavian survival study in which 4,444 patients with different types of heart disease were given this drug, Sanvantium, which is touted to be a safe, long-term treatment to improve survival in cholesterol heart disease patients. As it turned out, the claim that high cholesterol causes high blood pressure and heart diseases and death is incorrect. It is, in fact, the opposite. 3 reviews supporting the cholesterol hypothesis were found to contain altered data to support their conclusions, according to expert views of clinical pharmacology, in which it is noted, quote, our search for falsifications of the cholesterol hypothesis confirms that the conclusion of the authors of the 3 reviews are based on misleading statistics, exclusions of unsuccessful trials, and by ignoring numerous contradictory observations. Drugs.com contribution states that 35 million people on statins often experience mild side effects. 35 million people? That's a lot of money. Liver damage is one of the side effects. It is said to be rare, implying that ongoing liver tests while taking statins likely aren't necessary. Some doctors, however, say you need a baseline liver function test beforehand. The most common side effects of statin drugs, this cholesterol drugs, are one, headaches, muscle pain, lower back or side pain. Number two, nausea, congestion, or stuffiness, or runny nose. Number three, difficulty sleeping. Number four, constipation. And number five, hoarseness. And in just case you needed another source to exemplify statin's role in psychiatric problems, as of April 2018 study found that lowering cholesterol levels in men would bring about changes in nerve cell membranes and behavior in men. Quote, men seem to be more sensitive to low cholesterol levels, as association between low cholesterol levels and aggression is found mostly in men. The author says lowering cholesterol levels with statin drugs bring about several changes in the scandinavian systems, nerve cells, membranes, microvelocity, and behaviors, and need to be done with precaution in sustainable individuals. Lower cholesterol levels could serve as a biological risk markers for violence and suicide tendencies in psychotic patients with depression and schizophrenia. More studies and reviews on statin drugs use, 35 million people, rather than pointing patients in the direction of finding dietary solutions, including eating both the white and the yellow yolk from having eggs, and ditching processed vegetable oils in favor of healthy cooking oils like coconut oil, olive oil, and avocado oil. Harvard Health Medical School recently updated an article on how to manage muscle pain from taking statin drugs, perpetuating the cholesterol myth. They state, if you're not taking a statin drug now, you may well be soon. These medications are commonly prescribed to lower bad LDL cholesterol and have been shown to reduce the risk of heart attacks, strokes, and death. They are routinely recommended for people who have cardiovascular diseases and for many people ages 40 to 75 who don't have cardiovascular diseases but have at least one risk factor: high blood pressure, high cholesterol, diabetes, or smoking, and 7.5% or higher risk of stroke or heart attack in the next decade. Moreover, recent research indicates that they may benefit from a higher risk individual ages over 75 as well. Taking a statin drug may give you some assurance that you're doing all you can to avoid heart attacks and strokes. Exercising, losing weight, adopting healthy eating habits, and including vitamin D3 and coenzyme Q10 supplements in your diet are good strategies for maintaining your cholesterol levels. Unfortunately, the common suggestion for Elevating muscle pain is due to statin use is more of the same. Just try taking a lower dose or switching to another statin prescription. As if that weren't enough, experts say statin drugs may impair your memory and cause aesthesia, a possibility that real enough to call for a warning on the label of the prescription. Statin drugs use may precipitate a higher risk of developing cataracts, and it significantly increased the likelihood of raising the fasting glucose levels of non-diabetics, as well as inducing high blood sugars. In another review of the adverse effects of statin, it was noted that an array of an additional risk factors for statin AE adverse events are those that amplify or reflect the mitochondria or metabolic vulnerability, such as metabolic uh, uh, syndrome factors, thyroid diseases, genetic mutations linked to mitochondria malfunctions. The mitochondria is your engine of your cells. And on the cellular level, it become weak and you become subject to diseases. Given the false information saying cholesterol is at fault for causing heart-related diseases, it's the false information. The concluded prescription being handed out to patients for statin and the side effects they cause is clearly why. In the introduction, the author of the Annals of Nutrition and Metabolism study stressed this. We believe marked the starting points of a paradigm shift in not only how we understand the role cholesterol plays in health, but also how we provide cholesterol treatment. Our purpose in writing this supplementary issue is to help everyone understand the issue of cholesterol better than before. We hope that we lay out the case for why a paradigm shift in cholesterol treatment is needed now sooner than later. Statin drugs. Wow. High cholesterol may be a worry you don't need to have. Instead of potentially risking your health by taking cholesterol-lowering drugs, you can simply maintain your cholesterol levels by simply following these 8 steps. These 8 steps. Oh, uh, let me see if we can get this right quick. Then, well, I tell you what, they got these 8 steps, and it's a PDF viewer. Lower cholesterol, the lowdown of cholesterol, why you need it, and the real method to get your levels right. Oh wow, this is a whole nother section, a whole nother report. And how many pages? It's 40 pages. If you'd like to get this, you can send me a text at 313-600-8532. It's got these the lowdown on cholesterol, these 8 methods. She's hinting at one, cooking with avocado oil or coconut oil. He mentioned another oil in there, and olive oil. We mentioned the lecithin. Okay, of course, the drinking the water, of course, exercising. Um, those are some of the methods that was already introduced in McCullough's article. Um, just here, I just locked in to my phone. It's just some more methods. They got a picture of avocado in a salad. That's a good cholesterol. And just getting to the fats into our diet rather than the carbohydrates into our diet. They got a new thing out that help promote healing with that in mind. So hopefully this was helpful. And hopefully you get to start thinking about these old methods they've been telling people for years, even how they got to promoting this cholesterol. He didn't get into that, but it was back in the 50s. Uh, we had to talk about that later, but it's back in the 50s and how they promoted this cholesterol lie to getting people to take these statin drugs, and it just hurting people for years and years and years. And it was one of my mentors that I studied with in the 60s and 70s pulled my coat to this cholesterol lie, and I've been sharing it with folks for over 30 years. But way before I even had a brick and mortar building at 3807 East 8 Mile. Our goal is to get them people the information, and our prayers for people to apply the information and just share the information. Because if you're in war and somebody attacks your air, your water, and your food, you're under siege. And that's what's going on in America. We're under siege. So we have to do things to protect ourselves and our loved ones. And getting that information and hopefully applying it is one thing. Getting those hugs is another. So enjoy your September. I look forward to seeing you at 3807 East 8 Mile, and give us a call at 313-366-DIET or 586-757-DIET. Peace and love, y'all.